If you're running a software development agency, it shouldn't be too hard to grow. Welcome to ManagedCoder Podcast. Tune in every week to find out how to grow your software development agency and help you to solve your day-to-day problems. With 20 plus years experience running an agency, please welcome your host, Shahed Islam.
Hello everyone, my name is Shahed Islam. I run this podcast for agency.managecoder.com where I do talk to other agency owner or everyone who is involved with agency to talk about their agency and the process and biz dev mostly. So today we have a guest, Zack Drew. He works in an agency and I found him when I saw him that their agency has been selected on the Clutch top 100, I think. Is it 100, Jack? Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So congrats first, and thank you for
Thank you.
joining our podcast. So can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hey everybody, Zack Drew here. I am one of the 5 partners here at Blue Label, and I oversee client solutions, which in other words means sales, marketing, partnerships, and account management.
Thank you. So Zach, over the last 17 years, a lot of us who start an agency, whether it is software development or digital, one of the struggle I see that, how do we start and how do we grow? And biz dev is a big problem. And when you told me, we were talking earlier that, you've been running the biz dev, how did you guys start, did you guys have a biz dev team when you started the agency or, maybe a little bit more about the agency, how you guys started?
Sure. So Blue Label Labs, we've been around for 10 years. I joined about 3 years into that. So I've been here for 7. When we started, you really mainly just the founders who were building apps, complex websites for friends, family, other folks that they met along the way, and started to turn that into an agency. So we had a website up when I joined, and that was about it. So it was my job to go and find other clients or convince them that we were the right choice, which mainly meant pretty early stage entrepreneurs with just enough money for us to build something for them.
Okay. So yeah, that is a typical scenario. I have seen it again and again that you start with founder, like me and my wife started, and within network you build business, and then you hit you need to start growing, right? And that's where you need the biz dev. So when you took over the biz dev, how did you start? Maybe a little bit more about how did you guys start and how does it work on the biz dev? If somebody is listening who has no idea how to do the business development for a software development agency, how do they start?
Yeah, sure. I think I started with revamping the website. I think the website needed some work to be able to present ourselves better. So I started with that and really focused on case studies and be able to show off past work, I think is the most important thing for most websites. And from there, it was about creating the right business listings for the company across the internet, wherever business listings can be posted. So I think at this point, Blue Label probably has 350 business listings everywhere a business like ours could be listed. And I think that's part of it. Part of the battle is to make sure you're everywhere you can be so that no matter how anyone's trying to find you, they can. And so I think it was mainly website, business listings, and then we also discovered Clutch along the way, which became a big component of our lead generation.
Okay. So how do you guys do the lead generation right now? Is it any outbound, inbound? How many team members on your team right now do the biz dev?
Yeah, so my biz dev team is 2 client-facing sales team members, a sales support team member, and the marketing function is really taken care of by me, our co-founder, and we've got a writer who's mainly full-time with us to write content. And then we have 2 agencies, one for SEO purposes and to help us with that, link building campaigns, meaning going out and getting other folks to provide us a backlink from a high quality domain is one main channel that we use. And then social media agency as well, who helps with our social presence and social ads as well. But in terms of source of leads for us, the majority of leads still come inbound. And that would be 90% of leads come inbound, which means we need to be everywhere and also have a great website that converts well. So, website focus is pretty big for us, and to make sure it's as good as it can be and as conversion focused as it can be. And then Clutch is a big source of leads.
So how did you become a lot of people has good rating. Even I have talked to many agency owners, they have thousands of clients they serve, but I cannot even find them on Clutch. How did you guys become a top leader on the Clutch?
Yeah, it's a mix of paying for placement. We pay a pretty penny to be at the top list for global app devs every month. It's a pretty steep price tag, which puts us really above everybody else on the list. And that's one way. But then there's an organic component of that, or a perhaps more real component of that, where it is about reviews and quality of past clients and quality of reviews, types of clients, size of clients, awards. All of those things are used to determine where you fall on the Clutch list. And so we aim to optimize those things, stay in close contact with our Clutch representative, and make sure they understand what new things we have launching soon. So it's a big source. And then you mentioned outbound. Outbound is about 10% of our leads, and we've done a lot more of it in the last year and a half. And that tends to be cold outreach via email, a bit of cold calling, a bit of cold LinkedIn outreach, but mainly email, and lots of A/B testing to figure out what messages are resonating, what subject lines are working, and figuring out who the right targets are for us. Generally, it's CMOs, CTOs, C-suite, heads of product. Those tend to be the roles we approach from an outbound perspective.
Thank you, Zack. And I think this is, when I talk to other successful entrepreneur or biz dev who is running their biz dev department on agency, one thing they mentioned that discipline is very important, right? You did not just started 7 years ago and did some SEO or did some things. You mentioned that all very specific 300 places where you listed the website. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Because that is a common theme I have seen, that these people who are being successful, they are very consistent with their biz dev. It's kind of marketing and social media and other approach also. You were talking about that you are regularly keeping in touch with the Clutch representative to make sure that you are on the same page.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, consistency is important. I think it's just knowing where to spend the next hour, the next dollar, and figure out what's working, what's not from a marketing perspective. And for us, it's been really content heavy, right? Whether it's content for our website, for SEO purposes, content on the website because it's relevant to the people we want to approach from an outbound perspective. You can have a link to great articles, or to have content that again can be used for social media ads and the like. It all really comes down to having great content from my perspective.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have great content, who's going to be listening to you? Nobody really cares. So you've got to have that as a starting point.
Yeah. So talking about that, like you mentioned that you actually outsource the SEO part to another agency. And one of the biggest challenge I see that a lot of agencies do not have a separate like biz dev, forget about marketing department. So how do you trust someone outside, and do you guys just outsource, or you have to have some knowledge what exactly you are doing? Because when I hear SEO, and even a lot of my colleagues and people I ask, they have kind of question mark about outsourcing. What if I get blacklisted? So how do you make sure the quality is maintained, and whom do you outsource the SEO part? What would your suggestion to other agency owner?
Yeah, it's important. It's a funny space. SEO it's a mix of doing the right thing, maybe some gray hat stuff, and generally steering away from black hat stuff, which is very doable, but not advisable generally. It's an easy way to get blacklisted, as you mentioned. So for us, it was about finding a good partner, and we found a good one here in New York who does great work. They're called Tactical, with a K, Takical, and they do a great job at the SEO front. They just know the right strategy. They help hone keywords. They help us choose keywords for articles and do audits of the website. And the main thing they do is that link building outbound email work to get those backlinks. And on average, at this point, we're getting about 10 backlinks a month from quality domains, sort of domain authority of 40 or above tends to be the target, ideally even higher than that. And at a pace of 10 a month, that's pretty good. That really does help our SEO ranking. I know that for us, it's all about getting first page keywords, top 5 keywords. And I think even in we've had a really great couple of months, partly driven by Google, our lovely overlords, the changing algorithms that have helped us. And so we've gotten, I think it was like 20 or 30 new first page keywords in the last couple of months, each month, which is great, right? That just means that we're going to be found for those keywords much more readily than we ever were before. So we're really pleased with the SEO progress, and it definitely shouldn't be ignored. It's super important.
Thank you. One thing you mentioned about hiring a content writer full time, right? I remember when I asked my finance or other department or other manager that let's get content team, and they were like, we are development team. Why should we get a content? Like just outsource. And we tried it until we found out a dedicated person makes a huge difference. Even the status you post it on the social media, a content writer can make it a huge difference. Before I was spending time and I was wasting my time, I would say. And writing article by our developers sometimes they don't want to write article, but a content writer can go on a call with a developer and just listen to him and just write an article on behalf of him. How do you guys do content writing, and what is your advice to the agency owner that why they need to invest early to get some result for content?
Yeah, I think it's namely because writing is a skill set, and not a lot of people have it.
Yeah, I'm really bad at it.
Yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy to write for the right audience as well. You have to have the right tone. You have to figure out what your tone is, and we try to be authentic and friendly, but have a pretty straightforward point of view. It tends to be our sort of way of writing, and then it's coming up with great topics. But you're right that if you don't have somebody dedicated to it who is good at writing and starts to learn your agency too, right? It's if you outsource, they don't know anything about you, and they're not going to spend the time, because they're not paid that way, to learn about you and know what you do in and out. And so for us, having a writer in-house has made it easier. They know who we are, they know what we do, they can come up with topics on their own, or even if we give a writer a quick outline of, hey, this is the topic, here's a few bullets that we're thinking about, he knows exactly how to spin it for our audience and to make it relevant to our content and what we do. So it's been super useful.
No, I think you put a valid point and I think as an entrepreneur, most of the agency owner they just don't think that it is, is worth spending that amount of money for something which they will not get returned. We are always thinking about return of investment. So I think this is where, I feel like is something, a lot of entrepreneurs should do, invest money right now, and in 2 years, it will give them return. Other part you mentioned, that outbound email, I do talk to a lot of agency owner, and they go crazy about outbound emails. I remember in 2001 or 2, when I started doing freelancing, I used to send email to Craigslist that time. And at one point, every day I was just doing email to everyone. Even they were not looking for a website, I would just send an email. The success was so low. And, and it always reminded me that those kind of, should have picked 15 people whom actually I can serve better. So for me, I always think that when I talk to entrepreneur, they just go ahead and get anybody, and I receive a lot of these emails. They know that I have a team in India. They're still sending it to me from there. Most likely I will not hire them. You are just wasting your time. So what are your three advice or few advice for outbound email campaign? You talked about some A/B testing. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Specifically, those whom I am targeting, they are sending email from agency from India and Philippines and other places, sending it to us where they are not adding any value.
Right. Yeah. I think first and foremost, A/B testing is important to figure out what is the right subject line to get the email opened in the first place. And we found really simple ones work the best. Things like tell me more about blank company names app, or improving blank company's name app. Despite the fact that those are super boring subject lines, those get the highest open rates. And at this point, we're running something like somewhere between 50 and 70% open rates with headlines like that. So they're clearly working. Reply rates are much lower. We think a great reply rate would be 10%. We're more like 3 or 4 these days. Just fine, right? It's just about targeting. But it is a volume game. I think while it's important to figure out who are the right people that you want to get this message from a company perspective and from a titles perspective, it's still a numbers game. You really do have to send a lot of emails, and I don't think I'd shy away from saying it's important to send as many as you can in a day, depending on the health of your domain and the like. So from our perspective, if you're sending more than 100 emails a day from any one domain, you're probably running some risks. So we just buy a bunch of domains, or we have a bunch of domains, and we send from a variety of domains we don't really care about, so that if they did in the off chance get blacklisted, we don't necessarily care. But we also try to prevent that from happening in the first place, and we do that by only sending a certain volume. We don't send more than 100 emails a day from any email address. We make sure the emails are separated by at least a few minutes apiece, so that it doesn't look like it's a bot doing it. And as long as you do that, you're in a pretty good spot, and you can have as many email addresses as you want that are doing that. So it's been working for us.
What CRM system you guys are using? Any suggestions? What is better? Did you try any different ones?
CRM, we use Zendesk Sell, which used to be called Base, and it got bought by Zendesk. Okay. And it's good. It's simple. It's nothing fancy, and I don't think we'd ever need in the foreseeable future a Salesforce like rocket ship. It's too much. It's way too heavy for an agency to need that kind of software. So we find the simple ones to be the best, and we've been super happy with Zendesk Sell. We don't use it to send emails. You can if you want, but we don't. They do get tracked via the CRM, which is important. But we do use another email engine called Persist for our outbound email efforts, which helps orchestrate the autofill of company names and other information, and also does so that personalization element, and it also does the timing of the send, so that it doesn't send within a couple of minutes of each email. So Persist is what we use for that.
Campaign, right? Drip campaign. So yeah, I think one thing I learned last 2 years that outbound email, of course, you have to send a lot because competition is high, and consistency. You cannot start an agency yesterday. I mean, I got 3 calls last week because of the podcast that they outsourced to another agency. They got a domain name, and they're like, I bought the domain, I set it up. I said, nope, it won't work. Google is smarter than you. You have to buy domain a year ago. You have to warm the email address. You warm the IP address. It will take you. So I think, people need to show patience there, right? What I found out. And other thing is consistency. You talked about volume is very important, but end point is that your 10% sales comes from outbound email. In our case, less than that, 5%. Going back, the BizDev the last part, which is we are running out of time, but how important is your existing client to give you why BizDev working with your existing client is important? Because that is the part where people are, if you think about BizDev is about outbound email, you are only going to make 10,000 a month where you need 100,000, right? Why? Where is the other 90,000, Jack?
Yeah. There's surely something to be said for keeping your existing clients around and happy and making good referrals. I think for an agency early days, they're probably working with relatively small clients, so there probably isn't much of call it an inside sales strategy that's possible, meaning inside sales tends to be useful when you're working with a bigger customer, for instance. So, we work with iHeartMedia, Time Magazine, Bloomberg. So for us, inside sales is, okay, we're working for one product manager, maybe a few at that company. How can we get in front of other product managers within that company to see if they have other digital products we could help with? And so inside sales becomes important when you're working at companies of a certain scale. But before that, it's about keeping your current clients happy, making sure you've got they can be good references for you, whether it be on review sites or for other customers that are going to want to talk to them to understand if you're legit and good. And so you're going to need those references. So you need happy clients to start, that's for sure.
Thank you. And do you guys do anything specific to keep up or keep in touch with your client? Because one thing I found out, even my experience, that I have a list of clients where from our top level managers, or we actually, a biz dev person is assigned just to keep in touch with them. Maybe even just view their LinkedIn profile. So that guy who works on a top company or your existing client know that you are out there, or just say hi to him. Any other advice for existing client keep up, or how to get referral from them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely depending on the client, meeting with them from an account management perspective, depends on our client. Sometimes it's once a week, or me or my team meet with them. Sometimes it's every other week. Sometimes it's once a month. It depends on the client and their needs and how important they are to us. But the other aspect of that is asking for referrals. It really just is a matter of asking the question. That gets you most of the way there. Most people just don't ask. And if you don't ask, you're surely not going to get any. But the strategy we've taken is, well, one, ask, but secondarily, it's even looking at that person's LinkedIn network, going through it completely. If they share their followers, seeing who they're connected to, and we send emails to our clients to say, hey, we see you're connected to these 4 or 5 people. Are you friendly enough with any of them to make a warm introduction? So we tee it up for them. We say, here, these are the people that we want to know. And that works really well because it simplifies it. And most people won't deny you that. If they know that person, sometimes they don't, right? LinkedIn's like that. You get a lot of connections you don't know. But assuming that the person is connected to them and knows them, they'll make that introduction pretty quickly.
That's really good advice, Jack. We ran out of time. Thank you for your time today. If people want to contact you, what is the best way of contacting you?
Sure. It'd be going to our website, www.bluelabellabs.com, or emailing us at contact@bluelabellabs.com.
Thank you. Very nice talking to you.
Great to meet you, John. Thanks.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from us, you can follow us on Twitter @ManagedCoder or visit our website at ManagedCoder.com. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.